Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here for Chapter Secretaries, class number 2 in phase 2 of Northeastern District's Online Leadership Academy. We tend to be breaking new ground here. Several districts are interested in what we're doing, including Mid-Atlantic District, where our instructor is from, and he says he's going to steal everything that we're doing because this is exactly what they're looking for. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our instructor, Rob France, and he's going to tell you a little bit about himself. Just please, while we're during the session, stay muted unless you're called upon. I will monitor the chat. You can put questions in. You can you could do the raised blue hand. If you don't know how to do that, go in there down at the bottom in the participants box there, click on that, and you'll see at the bottom a blue hand. Click on that and it will pop up. And if you have a question, we'll make sure that you're called upon. Other than that, I think we're ready to go. I'd like to introduce Rob France. Rob.
Thank you very much, David, and it's my pleasure to be here. I was thrilled at the opportunity to be able to conduct a class. Oftentimes, when I'm coordinating classes down for Mid-Atlantic District, sometimes I'll sort of fill in because I have to, and that's fine. We always have issues finding resources and making sure you have internet connection and all that sort of thing, but now that's taken care of. It's kind of forces the hand. I have internet access, as you can see, and we'll have no problem going through the materials and looking at websites and making sure that we have good, clear navigation. I've been a barber shopper for about 12 years, and it's all been down here, Bucks County chapter in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, not far from Philadelphia, about an hour north. And it's been a great ride. I love singing. I sing lead. I've been in the chorus, and sung in competition for, district level and division level before. I've also been the president of the chapter. I've not served in other board positions. I've been the president of the chapter for about 4 years or so. I've been involved in many other undertakings and actually got involved at the district level. First as a chapter advocate, then as a VP of our divisions. We're broken into now 3 divisions, Northern, Southern, and Central. So I'm the Central Division guy. And then our former CSLT, God rest his soul, he passed away, Chuck. So I fill that role and love doing it. So, there's many different layers, as you're aware, where you can sort of use your singing skills or your artistic skills, as well as your leadership and your organizational skills. It's an interesting hobby, lifestyle, organization, right? And of course, if you think you got bored with the organization, don't worry, it changes, as we recently know. The Everyone in Harmony has been a big change that we've been dealing with. And there are some changes that are in our material. Before we get started on the material, I have one thing I'm going to share. So I'm going to share my screen. And unfortunately, to our compressed time, I'm not going to be able to go around the room and take invitations or information from everyone. Bear with me for a second. If you've had kids or grandkids, if you've ever seen this, just take a listen to this little short clip here.
I think the word you're searching for is Space Ranger.
The word I'm searching for, I can't say because there's preschool toys present.
Getting kind of tense, aren't you?
Oh, Mr. Lightyear, now I'm curious. What does a Space Ranger actually do?
He's not a Space Ranger. He doesn't fight evil or shoot lasers or fly.
Excuse me.
Oh, impressive wingspan. Very good.
Oh, what?
All right, so chuckle, chuckle, laugh, laugh, right? Let me go into presentation mode. So my purpose of saying that, and I want to be sure, can everyone still hear me? Is that okay? Is that good? I can't see a thumbs up, but you can say a yes, David.
We're good.
Yep. Okay, good. So you saw the title of the show, right? Of the first seminar, the first series here is, what does a chapter secretary actually do? So for the half of us that are kind of new to the role, this is going to be right up your alley. For those of you that are accomplished in the role, experienced, have done it for any length of time, there'll be some things that you'll pick up probably. I always learn something new every time. And, it may be, perhaps I can learn something from you too. So let's get on with it. This deck, as you see here that I'm going to be using, is the one that's available on the Barbershop Harmony Society. The Healthy Chapter Initiative, I talked with a few people. Chris Beekler is very good in the secretary way. I reached out to actually John Santora. He's done treasury class quite a bit. He and I know each other, but he's also participating at the society level, as well as Steve Wisomierski. Talked with him as well. He actually runs the Healthy Chapter Initiative. I was looking for updated slides. This is a couple, 3 years old. There's a lot that's happened since then. This fella here, ROSJ et al., is a buddy of mine down here in the Cherry Hill chapter. He's gone through and updated these slides a little. We talked about it. We used them at Mid-Atlantic District last year. So these are somewhat revised, and you'll have this entire deck after we're done. Okay, so the introduction will go beyond that. Lots of great resources. You'll hear me say this. I start right up at the front with this. If you have questions about things, chapter leadership and whatnot, you can reach out to me, but I'm probably not going to have the exact right answer or the legal answer. A lot of great resources. If you don't know it, chapters at barbershop.org. Barbershop Harmony Society has a full staff ready and waiting for your questions. So probably would be best if you get the answer right from the society as well, especially on some of the more legal things. Right. Copyright. I know there's a question about copyright laws. We're going to touch on that. And I'm going to put you in touch with Janice Bain, who's an expert at that and conducts, seminars with, people across the nation about this. So here's the training we're going to talk about, just an overview. This is just a description of what this deck covers. We talk about the role, member reporting, chapter filings, chapter reporting. All of these things will come out. I've broken this into two halves, what we do, and then the forms that we need is kind of the structure. There are courses, as you can see. You'll have this deck. You can go through this. You can click on these links, and you can get to them. The Document Center, if you've not been there, I am going to switch to that a minute here. I'm going to come out of full screen mode. I want to just do this really quickly while we're starting. I'm just going to go to a new tab. I'm going to search for Barbershop. I'm going to tell you something. This is kind of like Rob's little secret, little value add secret, Barbershop Harmony Society. So you see, I just entered a search term and came up with, a bunch of links, and I have to pick the link that I want, and here we are. If you were to bookmark this page, that'd probably be okay. Right? But if you get to Document Center and you find a resource that you want, let's say you go down here to Chapters and Membership, you go down here to Chapter Business Resources, which is a good place to have. If you go ahead and bookmark that, well, like we said, things change. The Barbershop Harmony Society does sometimes reorganize these pages. They're pretty well set now, but they do change them from time to time. So if you had a bookmark link, it might not work. But if you remember how to search for it and you remember the search term, well, then you'll be able to find it, because typically the title of the document is not going to change too much. So we talk about in the presentation, which is over here, talk about the Document Center, and there are all of the resources you need are here, including, let's see, so we have Chapter Secretary Tools and Documents, which is where this document is from. This presentation is right down here, right? Color PDF with slides with note, or PDF full slides. I actually have the PowerPoint. This is where these documents are. So you've got the Secretary Manual, which was sent to you, I think, in an email that has a lot of information that's parallel to this. All right, so we're connected. We've got information. I'm going to go back into presentation mode here and continue along. Going to skip that slide for a minute. We'll skip by it. We've not done class introductions. We have a compressed time frame, and I'm really taking too long. There's a lot of slides here in this deck that I want you to focus on. Many times we've been in chapter and district leadership meetings, and we've talked about what do chapters need, and of course we all need money, and we all need resources like membership resources, new members, things like that. One of the things that comes up always, invariably, is that we need to have more leaders. How can we be leaders, right? To teach us to be leaders. And I think that your prior segment, you've covered a lot about leadership. This deck includes it. It's baked in to Healthy Chapter Initiative. There's lots of things that are covered as leadership topics. So this particular source, I'm going to go down to the Legacy Builder by Rod Olson, talking about building a legacy and his steps, specifying the win, keeping it simple, faithful, available, and teachable. Are you a fat leader? Ways to do leadership, right? Be a three-dimensional leader. The power of speaking greatness. Think before you speak. Learn it. Speak it. If you did something wrong, admit it. Fix it. Don't repeat it. That sort of thing. There are lots of great concepts here. If I were an organizational, motivational speaker, or if I were in a different role, if I were doing the presidential class, we might focus more on this. Leadership skills are very, very important. How to be a good leader is covered here. Here's another, slide here. Jack Welch, CEO of General Electric, his book Winning. So, I guess what I want to say about leadership is there are a lot of leadership book resources. These are just two of them that made it into this presentation. I can tell you that, and I have different documents as well that I use with my chapter advocates about leadership, that, there's not just one right answer, and there's not just one way to do it. And a lot of times, in chapters, depends on how your chapter runs, this can become a heated discussion about how to do something or how to lead out, and there might be just a different leadership style that's happening, right? So one of the things that's very, very important to me that I take from a different leadership book that has to do with efficiency and systems efficiency and systems thinking. There's two concepts here. One is understanding the difference between advocacy and balancing advocacy and inquiry. So the idea here is that when there's a point of view on your board, and this matters to everyone on the board, right, is there are people who will advocate their position. I think we should be singing now to other people who are advocating their position. No, I think we need to be safe now. And I mean, this is topical, right? So there's a balance here and inquiring. Well, why is it so important for you that we get together and sing now? Because this is unsafe, in my opinion. Well, because, and then they inquire, and the idea is that that's supposed to help us de-escalate the issue. There's another aspect of leadership too, and I use this when I do installations. Has to do with dealing with the emotional intelligence of understanding where you are. If you haven't read that book as well, emotional intelligence is good. Understanding as leaders on teams, maybe you're a secretary of your chapter, but you might also be the head of maybe a task force working on a sub project, an outreach project, something, right? Maybe working in concert with. We want to encourage leadership, and we want to encourage budding young leaders to grow. We want them to, around my office, around Merck, we want them to make mistakes and learn from their mistakes. You want to have them be free to learn, to try things and to try new things, maybe new ways we hadn't thought about, without curtailing them into the same box, right? If that makes sense, that you want to keep them in, right? So when you're a leader, you want to lead and lead strongly and lead well, right? And encourage input. When you're participating on a team and someone else, maybe a younger leader, is leading, you want to enable them and not undermine them, right? So you want to be a good follower, from a position of, leadership and, followership, right? So anyway, that's what I'm going to say about leadership. There's a couple of slides here. This is the book Legacy Builder by Rod Olson. If you haven't read it, I recommend you take it and read it. Jack Welch, from his book Winning. It would be great, a great book to have. There are many others, and maybe I can include a slide from my advocate training. So your role. And there was some questions that came up about your role as chapter secretary. Basically, I'm going to use something that I heard a long time ago in a sermon back in a church a long time ago that this is from the teaching that the man is the head of the household. Where man is the head of the household, right? And if the man is the head of the household, the woman is the neck that turns the head, right? So, and that usually gets a couple of laughs. So, but it's true. I mean, you have to work together. So the secretary is not the president, but the secretary runs the chapter. Make sure that everything is the documents are filed, that filings happen on time, that minutes are taken of meetings, that proper order is followed. There are agendas for meetings, things of that nature. In a smaller chapter, the secretary and treasurer can be the same person. And the theory there is that in a smaller chapter, there's not as much going on, so you could probably wear both hats. In a larger chapter, I think larger than like 15 members, you probably want to divide that role and start to divide and conquer. Let's move on to corporate responsibilities. So you are a voting board member. Your vote counts. Maintain corporate status with your state or province, in Canada. Meetings you conduct. Sometimes you'll conduct. You'll call to order meetings. Chapter annual meetings, very important one. It's an annual meeting once a year. Happens all the time. It's how you were elected to this position, hopefully. And then maintains the corporate legal files, either electronic or in paper. And some things have to be in paper. And then some things can be electronic. It's good to make sure, I'll just speak on that. We have just a minute. If you're going to have electronic copies, make sure they're backed up. If you're going to have paper copies, make sure they're in a safe, fire safe box. And you may want to make a photocopy and store it somewhere else. Now, maybe that's not practical. I don't know. Depends on how your files are. There are a couple of documents, key documents you want, like incorporation status. That's very important. Filings, those are very important. You might want to have photocopies of those on hand and backed off in paper. The other one would be maybe your charter. That's also another good one that would be important to maybe make a photocopy of it and keep the photocopy on your ready files that you take back and forth to meetings or that you have as easy access. And you take the original and you put that in a fire safe in a box somewhere where it's isolated and safe.
Rob, somebody is asking, Steve Stoyevsky is asking, can you give an example of something that must be on paper?
Your charter. I think your charter is an official document with a wet signature. A good example would be things that have a wet signature are typically, that's your clue that it has to be a paper copy. Membership documents used to be filed physically, and you had to have a physical copy. We have a new process now, but I think there's advisement is still made. And I don't think we've broken the leash exactly yet that you want to print that out and have a paper copy of the application, right? So, do I have a list? I don't have a list, Steve. You have to use your best judgment at that. Minutes to meetings, those can be electronic. Those can be, email. You can have email meetings and email votes for sure. There are paper copies of your charter, of your chapter bylaws that come from the society, and then they get ratified and they get stored. You might have a code of regulations, that sort of thing. Anything that's got a signature on it, you're going to have a paper copy of that original wet signature. You can scan it for reference, put it on your website. Does that answer the question? Is there another answer to that question? Okay. Society youth policy. Let's talk about that for a minute. So society youth policy is very important. And this is right. So everything's very important. I'm going to stop saying everything's important. But with this one though, right? So we're all about safety of minors. So a couple of important points here. I actually was a leader of the Cub Scouts, right? Of my son's Cub Scout troop. We would go through training, right, around our school district. If you want to chaperone on a trip, you have to go through the child safety training. There's child safety training for the Barbershop Harmony Society. You want probably at a minimum, you want if you have children involved, and I hope you do have children involved in your chapter initiatives, you want to go through training. You want to maybe have all of your board, be executive board certainly, but all of your board members maybe go through the training. And you might as well just have everyone go through it if you can handle that. Better to be go through the training than to have an accident or have an issue, right? I don't mean an accident like, so it's all about their safety and welfare. And one thing that was very important to the Cub Scouts was accountability for two reasons. Is bi-directional accountability, right? So two up leadership. So when the youth is there, they're chaperoned by a person, or they're managed or mentored by a person, but there's two deep leadership. There's always, the child and two adults, right? For accountability. That's for accountability of the adults, right? So that, nothing happens untoward to the children or to the child, but also so the child can't make up a story, right? So we have to be careful both ways, right? So it just made more sense.
Rob, Terry Kopka from the Schenectady chapter has a question. Terry,
Okay.
unmute and ask your question.
More of a statement. If you have youth members, the paperwork signed by the parents and your chapter has to be paper.
There you go.
Okay.
Thank you for that. And that's exactly good. Glad to hear that. The other thing you need to consider is if you're going to be taking photographs of your chapter doing work, you'll need a photo release form for the minor. And you might need it for everybody. Really, if you're going to actually have a video, you need to have a release. So you might want to consider having that as an annual practice that, they sign. Might be in their application, right? But it could also be something that you want to refresh every year, right? Have that on hand. All right, so let's talk about this reinstating members. Now, there are processes that are described in the manual for new members, dual members, transfer members, and reinstating members. So again, like I said in the email, we would ordinarily spend all day together, but I'm going to have to just pick the highlights here, and we're going to have to go with the highlights and count on you to go through the manual in detail. All right. Reinstating members, though, it's very, very important this 30 days, because if you don't do it in Member Center within the 30-day period, they get whacked out of the system, and that's not a good thing. It's I hear, a very difficult process to reinstate. Now, maybe they're getting better with that. That might be the 1.0 incarnation that was very difficult. Hopefully, we can work that system so that it makes it easier and so that we don't hack people off at 30 days. But for now, be sure if someone's reinstating or if someone's membership is coming due, follow up on that and be sure that you get to it, sooner rather than later. Part of that is driven, we want to keep and retain as many members. As you know, probably your district is going through it like our district, the Mid-Atlantic district, and the whole society is going through sort of a reduction, right? So there's been a shrinkage going on for several years. If I'm saying something you haven't heard before, then please let me know. But I think we want to retain as much talent in the society as possible. But the reason I'm saying this is not for that reason. The reason I'm suggesting that you want to be sure that you're on top of this is really for your benefit, because I want to make it and keep it easier for you and the member that perhaps might lapse. Other things in the role of membership that you look for is celebration of membership. I know our chapter, many other chapters, they celebrate, we have a card for, Joe Brown, and he's 53 years, yay. And so that kind of, we sort of celebrate that in our meetings, probably you all do that as well. We want to celebrate those things. That's pretty cool. It's quite a milestone. You maintain the monthly reports, of membership and you have a general reporting the members, the guests, the attendance, keeping attendance, and you keep the chapter roster up to date. All those things fall within the Secretariat. Society invoices and compliance with filings. We're going to talk about the forms in the second half, so I'm going to skip that for now. Insurance filings, copyright compliance filings. There are forms you file when you have to file it. Some of them are, timely, like your 990, and they have to be at a certain date. And then some of them are at the end of year, like the Ascap or SOCAN would be an end of year. You maintain, by the way, the file for licensing of music and learning media. Now, I know that probably none of your chapters have any illegal copies of music. You know, I'm sure because my chapter doesn't either, right? But you know, it just we made an effort when I was president. We called it the Emerald Project to kind of talk about going green, you know, in society. You know, going green from a you know a recyclables perspective, going green in our chapter to get, you know, from here on forward to get, you know, legal copies of music and whatnot. I think that's been a trend that a lot of chapters have been doing that. You're going to keep track of that. So you as the secretary are going to have the music file and keep track of the licenses. You might not, you probably should try to get someone to delegate the responsibility. Maybe the music team falls in the music team responsibilities to manage the physical copy of or the download ability of music. So that becomes like a sheet music inventory management problem, but you're going to keep track of the licensing. And the reason why that's important for you to have is because you're also going to file the what the heck is it? The form for competition, the Form 20 that you file when you're going to compete, and that you have to report that you've got the legal copies, right? What is the CJ? Is it CJ 20? Is that what it is? I should know that. I don't do that. All right, communications. There's communications. You're a communicator. You communicate between everyone. You're kind of the glue. You kind of keep everything together and keep things moving, right? So, you know, between members and chapter officers, between members and other chapters, between members and district leaders, and between members and society leaders. So, you know, like chapter advocates, for instance. You know, one of the things that we have in our chapter is, you know, you have a chapter advocate. Well, what do we need that guy for? We're all right, right? So I'm putting on my advocate hat for a second, right? But so there's no reason why you shouldn't be in communication with your chapter advocate, or you shouldn't have, or maybe you could be the House of Delegates, the delegate for your chapter, right? So yeah, it's good to pass that around, but it could fall on you too. And that's a great way to stay connected with what's happening at a district level. And you can be the one, or should be the one, that maybe brings some of that information back to your chapter. So there's notifications, you know, annual meetings, renewal of membership, we talked about, contest prep, right? CJ20, reporting officers and compliance filings to the BHS through Member Center. Some of this is redundant. I know it's redundant, but it's here because we learned by redundancy. Filings. Did I say filings before? Yes. Bulletin and newsletter support. I don't know why that's on here. I don't know if you can do that too. I mean, for a larger chapter, that could be a lot of work. But meeting summary, maybe providing a meeting summary for the newsletter, that could be. Annual schedule. Okay, so what you do is you process membership applications. We talked about that. Process the dual membership applications. That's already handled there. You're going to announce chapter board meetings. You're going to send out an email to remind people that there's going to be a meeting that's upcoming. For the annual meeting, you know, or the slate of officers, you might have to announce that 2 weeks, you know, in a chapter meeting setting, in a chapter setting. The annual, there are in the bylaws, there are restrictions or constraints on when you communicate, right, for the annual meeting, because everyone has to be able to participate should they want to. I don't know what's under here. I don't know if I can edit that real quickly. Hang on, let me just edit that real quick and get out of that. Stand by. If you have a question, go ahead and ask it. Okay. There you go. Move that. Right. Okay. Notify necessary chapter leaders of members who will fail to renew. Okay. Yeah. I can see why that was covered up. Let me just point, I hear someone getting ready to ask a question. Let me just point out one thing too. Not that it happens often, because actually singing together, you know, we're brothers in harmony. You know, someone actually has that as their name of their chapter, of course. Brothers in Harmony, brothers, you know, it's Jack Pinto's group, you know, but it's a brotherhood, right? But sometimes it becomes necessary for, you know, separation to happen. It's a forceful separation, and that's unfortunate. it's very important that that your board understands the status of members, especially if they approach the board for something in an end around kind of a way. This probably doesn't happen, but maybe it does. It's just a means of communicating. It's just in the context of communicating and making sure that people are aware. By the way, this person did not renew, and really, they become then targets of our membership drive, to bring them back in. And maybe they forgot. Maybe they're disgruntled and something has to be dealt with. That could happen too. Anyway, it's important to communicate that. Was there a question?
No, there are no questions.
Okay,
But
and David, tell me what time.
I just wanted to make a mention that this is a very difficult time during this pandemic with the restrictions, and people are losing interest. And there are people who are just not renewing because they say, "What's the point? I'll renew when the lights come back on."
Right.
And what's happening is that our membership is taking a huge hit.
Yeah.
Not just here in NED, but throughout the society. So we want to keep people active members. And if you see somebody, and if you look at your chapter rosters on Member Center, you can see people who are approaching their renewal date and those that have passed, but only up for a month. And then after that, bye-bye. So keep on your toes.
And it's not just, so that's another aspect of this too, that it's not just a problem for VP of membership to handle. I mean, it's kind of like we're all in, right? In chapter leadership, we're all in to try to help this. Not that you're going to have to do a sell job on them, but encouragement, right? To hey, stay connected, stay engaged. All right. Yeah. Role at chapter board meetings. You're a voting member. Talked about this. We had the overview of this. Accurately share information. Work closely with the chapter president and the treasurer. There's sort of the trifecta, right, of the chapter. You are, and I'm going to highlight this, right? So you are the man in the know, man or woman in the know, right? And that's where this deck has to be fixed as well, as you're the one who's in the know. I gotta put a note to fix this slide. Point being, though, is that you're the one that knows where to go find resources and get people connected. You might not have the answer, but you might be able to point to where to find the answer. I wonder how many of you actually are. I always encourage this as well. I put a plug in here. When I was president, I encouraged my board members, like VP of Music, go and meet the other VP of Musics, like in our area, right? We're not the only chapter here. Go meet them and understand what their chapter does and how they do it. Or a VP of membership or president. Well, I did, and I would. Get to know them, network, right? It's a much larger society here, right? And district as well, district and society. Share information, right? I'm big about that. Share information. Hey, how did your singing Valentines go this year? Were you, did you have as many, or did it fall off? What does your package look like, and how much do you charge for it? We're looking to price things in our area similarly, right? That kind of thing. So, I mean, share information, right? Why not? And help each other, right? Why not? Chapters helping chapters. That's what Healthy Chapter Initiative is all about.
Rob, I'd like to, Bill Moore has a question that goes back to what you were saying before. Much of what you are saying seems like the membership VP's responsibility. Can you clarify the line between the roles?
Yeah, so the membership guy will be doing the outreach, the actual outreach. And will report to you like the number of members, the attendant, the number of the number of guests, the number of prospects, all that sort of thing. Since the chapter secretary is the interface with applications and the application process, it has to be plugged in. Our application process, we have tryouts, right, or auditions. We have, so the music team is involved in that from a musical standpoint. We have a process, all right, so the membership guy is the intake, communicator, right? We have guests, and then we want to bring them before the board to be voted in as members, right? So if you don't have that process documented, I implore you to document that process so you know what it is, and everyone can follow it. Once the member has been referred as, now they're going to be a member, that application now rests in the Secretariat. And that's why it makes sense for you to keep track of the roster. And also it's good to take attendance. Now, a membership guy is more of a salesy kind of a guy, kind of a membership support kind of a guy, making sure that the member is fully supported, that they're engaged and having a good time, right? And enjoying what they're doing, and that if they need a book, they get the book from the right person. They need music, they get the music from the right person. They have a membership renewal, coming up. You're on that. So that's where the divide is you're actually running the legal documents for the chapter and keeping things, true and square. The membership guy is more of the kind of the fuzzy touch kind of guy. Does that help?
Yeah, I would just add that what you said, that the membership VP is more outward facing, and that is trying to attract people to come into the chapter. And it's been my experience that the VP of membership isn't all that concerned about renewals and
Right.
people that are facing renewal or being bounced off the system. So I think there is a clear distinction.
Yep, absolutely. Cool.
It makes sense to me now. Thank you.
Okay, good. Meeting responsibilities. Well, have a plan, right? Before the meeting, announce the meeting, and design and publish the agenda is really where the work is. Solicit and make available the documents. And prepare the membership status report. So we get an email from our secretary that says, hey, these are the minutes from the last meeting, and this is the agenda, and these are the topics that we know about. We'll even try. Not every chapter can do this, but a lot of chapters do. We learned this from another chapter to put what the old business was that we're going to continue to talk about, and if there are any new business items that are known, we try and get those into the agenda beforehand, so the board knows what's coming and knows to avoid it. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't really say that. So during the meeting, record accurate minutes and provide input, of course. And then after the meeting, promptly prepare the minutes. Don't do it like, 3 weeks from now. You want to take care of it like next day or two. Answer the questions and share appropriate information. I want to back up for a minute and talk about record accurate minutes. This is an important topic. I'm not sure if we have a slide later that covers this. Not exactly. So you don't have to record every word. As a matter of fact, you might want to, some might be compelled, like we're recording this session. So all of these, ums and uhs and, kind of not knowing the answer and kind of talking can get clumsy, right? So you don't need every word, right? You might not want to record everything either, like record it in a recorder, because that can be embarrassing and people would maybe not speak up, right? I think one of the things that's important at board meetings is that as a president, I always encourage people to talk amongst themselves. I want you to contribute. I want you to feel free to speak up. And if something's working, that's great, great. Yay us, right? Go team. If it's not working, I want to hear from that too. And I don't necessarily want to get you recorded saying that you think that I'm an idiot, right? So, I want you to feel free to say that if you feel like that's the case. That doesn't go in the minutes, right? What has to go in the minutes is when you're dealing with money, you have to record the talk or the discussion, not all the discussion, but the decisions, right? Specifically, and this is why we would put them in a motion. So anything that's in a motion, you want to record the motion because you have to have the text of that, and then how the vote went. And if it's a consensus vote, it's like, all in favor, aye, any opposed, nay. If there are any nays, you might have to take that to account, to a closed ballot count, right? So Robert's Rules of Orders, the easy rules of orders, right? You have to make that determination amongst yourselves, but you want to record those minutes. If it's something that's important or germane to the functioning of the chapter, if it's something that's critical, you want to capture the decision of it and maybe some of the context, right? So use your judgment. You can write down and take a lot of different notes, right? So you can prompt yourself later. Maybe you can record, if it's okay with everyone, you can record to prompt yourself for later if you make that clear. But if it's going to impede people from sharing freely, then you might want to shy away from that, okay? I think I've hit that enough. those are going to go in your official file. So those minutes are the official file. I was a president of a radio club, amateur radio club, and one of the things I instituted there, and I tried to get our secretary to do it here in the barbershop chapter, was to have a register of motions. I always thought this was a good idea, so that he had a separate sheet of the date and time, or whatever, the date, and then the motion, what the motion was about, and then whether the motion carried or not, right, the outcome. So I wanted to have on a sheet all of the motions that were considered by the board over a span of time. So we started with a month, and then, a couple of months, a couple of years, all that kind of stuff. And before you know it, the reason why that comes up is because we have new people rotating in and off the board and on the board. And we've talked about this before. Probably, maybe we even made a decision. Maybe we don't know where the decision is. So one of the things I didn't want to do is I didn't want to re-talk about something if we didn't need to talk about it. Wait, I think we decided about how the membership process should go. Where was that? Did we have minutes? Did we have a motion, right? Did we decide this already? So if you have a register of motions and you can distill that into a ready, handy reference, then it makes it that much easier to find out, right? Otherwise, you're going to be going through minutes after minutes after minutes after minutes, and it's just not worth it, right? Anyway, just a thought. Be organized, right? All right, there's some sample meeting forms I'm going to cover here, and we're getting close to time. David, what is my time? Is it 8 o'clock? Is our first break? Or not?
It's 7:45.
Well, here we are. It's 7:45 now. Do we need a break now, or do we want to continue?
No, we can go until 8 o'clock. That's the format. Harry Willis has a question he'd like.
Okay, that's what I was asking, is when we're stopping this segment. Okay, Harry, go ahead.
He's on mute.
Unmute yourself, Harry.
Sorry about that. We have a VP of chapter development who prepares a monthly report on the status of active and participating members. Could you elaborate on what preparing the membership status report consists of?
Right. So I'm not sure if, as a chapter officer, he has full access to the chapter members on Member Center.
He should, as a chapter officer, he should have access to.
I think so. Yeah, that's right. So he's either going to get that directly from Member Center, or he'll get that report from you as chapter secretary. And it sounds like it's a great task if he's willing to undertake it, to prepare that summary on a periodic basis. I think that's great.
Okay. Thanks.
All right.
And Steve Stajewski has a question. He says, a register of motions sounds like a great idea. I suppose it should include the date of the board meeting at which the motion came up.
Absolutely. Yep, that's the first column. Date, motion, and then outcome. Yep. All right, cool. This next section, I'm going to let you, there's a lot of links here, right, about, how to get to the forms. We're going to look at this, actually in the next segment. So I'm going to bypass some of these slides. We'll look at them and we'll take what we need for this segment, and then we'll cover the rest in the next segment. We already talked about Document Center. Business, see this link is Business and Finance. I don't think it's called that anymore, right? Let's see, it's called, here, let's get to that. This is called Chapter Business Resources now, right? So same stuff though, same stuff. Here's treasurer's documents. Here's the bylaws, district and chapter bylaws. Here's show clearances, insurance forms and terminology, other tools, tax documents. Here's your 990s down in here, right? There's your W-9s if you need them. 990s down here, right? So this is now Chapter Business Resources. So, you won't have all, let me back to it there. There you go. Good. And presentation mode, bingo.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
I saw that when it said insurance, I know that several chapters have been asking our district board about a reduction in the premium for our liability insurance since we're not meeting for now 7 months. Do you know, is there any chatter at BHS headquarters about reducing the premium on our liability insurance and then passing the savings on to each and individual chapter?
I'm not aware of that. That's a great question. I think we should send that to chapters@barbershop.org. I have not heard that chatter. I'm not plugged in at the society board level.
Okay, maybe I can ask Alan Lamson if he's heard anything.
I have not.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. We talked about parliamentary procedures, right? So why use it? So everyone can be heard. So decision-making process can be done without confusion. We've heard of Robert's Rules of Order, parliamentary process. We've all experienced it at some point in our lives, right? This is the reasons why. Democratic process at meetings. Use consensus rather than voting by motions. This is the small boards edition. So it used to be the case that Robert's Rules of Order, very regimented, and you had to know, you might even, feel compelled to put on like a wig and stuff, as you go through it, right? But the small boards, you don't have to be so regimented, guys. Just, really, if you're a board that gets along great, you have board meetings, and you sort of, hang out and have a board meeting over dinners or something like that. It's just, make sure you write reports down and that you publish your agenda. Just make sure you get things, motions actually in writing and stuff. So, just you gotta have some, modicum of professionalism to it, right? If you have a contentious chapter, though, this can be a very important aspect, and you might go with more of the more structured parliamentary process. You got a rabble rouser, and the vote's going to come down to a 5-4 vote, if that's what your board is structured like. You may need to consider that, right? So use it. It's there for you. It's there for you to help run the chapter and the chapter meetings efficiently. That's really what it's for. No one's going to make you do that, right? Well, I guess the bylaws say that you will. So maybe someone might make you do it. I'm not going to come make you do it.
Steve Stoyevsky says, or a single contentious issue.
Right.
Something that's been ongoing for months.
Yeah. Right. Like whether to sing together or not, for instance. When it comes to contention as well, there's a great book about having great studies, articles about having difficult conversations. Usually you'll find those in, organizational behavioral leadership studies and whatnot. And it's really, a lot of those are, how to have difficult conversations with employees about, behaviors, or even, bosses about behaviors, up the chain, down the chain kind of stuff. But we deal with that here too. We're all volunteers. We're all here just volunteers. We really, we want to, we pay, to belong, right? Pay to sing, right? Pay to play. If there is a contentious situation, it's about relationships, and it's about working through those relationships. And sometimes, people, you have to respect each other enough to invoke a parliamentary process so that you can be fair to all parties so that they can be heard. Whether or not the vote goes their way or not, right? It's important that people are heard, and that in the end of the day, we can then, go pick up after the bloodbath in the board meeting, and we can go sing "Heart of My Heart" to someone for Valentine's Day together, right? So, it's to our advantage to maintain the relationship. So try to work through the contentious spots and make it not contentious would be a great goal. So there's some terms here that you can pick up. There's some more parliamentary terms. There's little booklets that you can get, about, if you really want to go crazy into, Robert's Rules of Orders. I had it at one time. I don't know if I still have it. I might have burned it or given it to someone. We talked about member reporting. There are different classifications of membership reporting. This is some of the edits that we have from my buddy Rich. It's not membership documents anymore. It's a different link right now. You search for membership classifications, and of course this is also different too. There's men and women, so the wording had to change here a little bit. It's men or women or people, and there's the aspect too. I mean there's different classes here, and there's different aspects of how you pay and how much you pay. Whether you're a 50-year member, a life member, how much a life member pays, that sort of thing. Society dues, and then there's chapter dues and district dues on top of that. If there are questions, and this is where it gets into this slide, these couple of slides, I see them there. Here's the, right? This is some of the strike through that we've come through, not available for females. Well, it is now, there's a lot of legal aspect to this, and there's a lot of stuff on this that can change without notice, right? So this is here to just sensitize you to the fact that there are different classes, and to be aware of, and that's part of your membership reporting, is the names, of course, and dates of service, when they became a member, maybe what voice part they're in. Well, that's really a music thing, but it might be nice to keep track of that, but also then what kind of membership they have, if they're a life member or not, if they're a golden oldie. All right.
Rob, this is Alan. Could I, just one thing for clarification? These are actually classifications to describe the amount of dues that is paid. The society only has one classification of member, and that's active member.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is for dues payment only.
A dues payment only.
Okay.
There is no difference in the ability or the rights of a member, whether they're a youth member or a senior member.
That's a good clarification to bring. Thank you, Alan.
Yep.
Okay. All right. New application process. My son became a member, and he's a youth. Okay, so he's 15, was 13 when he joined, but we did it online. So the process is changing, right? So I think this is outdated. This is mostly right, but I think this is this is outdated. This talks about keeping scanned copies can be accepted by emailing. So they've changed. This was added to this slide. That didn't used to be the case, right? But now it is. So dual membership, there's some rules about dual membership. You can do it in Member Center, much easier. Application, a $10 fee to process the dual membership application. So there's a bit of process here. That's also in the handbook, the Secretary Manual that I have here, and it covers all of that. I would implore you to look at that specifically. Again, looking at time, and I'm sorry that we have a limited amount of time, but there's a lot to the Secretariat that we could go into depth with. Transferring membership can't be done electronically. I don't know why. I think that's a fault of the system, and that actually I think that was I was talking with, I could swear I was talking with Rich and with Chris Beekler about this, that they were working on a way to make that be done electronically. So I don't know the status of that project. I'm not plugged into that project, but I mean, in today's world, I mean, come on, really?
Well, it's a programming issue. It's something
I know.
has to sit down or be paid to fix. So I don't know how happy they are to do that.
Well, they have folks, and it's a data issue as well, right? They have folks doing that, though. They have folks looking at that all the time.
Okay, we have a question from Robert Golenbach.
Okay.
Online membership application means the secretary isn't burdened with protecting the credit card numbers.
Yeah, right.
There's also, this is Alan again, there's also the issue, I think, part of the issue with transfer is membership in a chapter by the bylaws is only afforded to somebody upon vote of either the board or the chapter depending on how the chapter sets it up in the bylaws. So an automatic transfer electronically could circumvent the ability of the receiving chapter to make a decision as to whether they want to receive that person. I think that's part of the issue. They haven't figured out how to do that and allow the receiving chapter to have a voice.
Right. In other words, the process has to have some checks and balances in it for that.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay, we also have a question from Terry Topka from the Schenectady chapter. Terry, unmute and ask your question.
The new membership process that came out was unwieldy at first, and I found out that information that was on the paper form was not in the electronic. So I still had the person fill out the form for us so that we had the information that we needed, and then just do it electronically after that. Of course, the new person was already voted in, but it's just, I'm not sure if they've adjusted that, but I found out that doing both and then electronically is the better. And you also have a paper record as well.
Right. Yep. Here's that note: avoid retaining credit card payment information, of course. Right. So.
Yeah, Rob, could I also mention, go back one slide, please, because.
The transfer?
No, one back.
Tips?
That one.
Yep.
Your fourth point for the chapter secretaries. I think it's important to recognize all of the efforts by various people to get a member to join. And we find ourselves in this day and age now, a lot of people find us online and they come to a chapter meeting and have never talked to anybody in the chapter until they get there. So I think for the secretaries, it's important to really ferret out who there might be one person in the chapter who had the significant impact upon that person joining, upon him arriving. And he's not a sponsor, but he's the person that actually persuaded this person, the new person, to join the chapter. From a point of view of a person of note, I got to be careful with the man of note, person of note. Sometimes that one guy that stood next to him for 3 straight rehearsals on the rises and told him all the good things that were going on deserves that person of note award, even though he's not, quote, the sponsor.
Cool. Thank you.
We are at the 8 o'clock hour.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is this a good stopping point?
Yeah, it is. Yes, it's actually a good stopping point. Let me just get these 2 slides out of the way, and then we'll stop. Payment methods. And there was there was a lot of angst about this in the past. I think online. I think a lot of people pay online now, don't they? Don't they pay membership dues? At least I do.
Yes.
Right online. There's no check anymore. It was there was a fee, an exorbitant fee for check processing or something. I think we're trying to move people away to
the society. The society claimed that it costs $22 to process a check.
I know. Whatever. Okay, maybe that's true. I don't know. It could be true. That could be true. I don't know. So just online's easier. But the Angel Fund or pay as you go, Joe. Our chapter treasurer and really our chapter treasurer runs that in our chapter with people who pay either their annual like chapter dues. We collect our own chapter dues or the pay as you go. We have a guy that does that, and he just keeps track of that. Associate status for non-members and things. This has changed. So I'm not even going to spend time on that. You'll see that in this deck when I put it. Reinstated members, more than 30 days, not 6 months, $10 reinstatement fee. Late renewal, less than 30 days. Let's see, member dues that are less than 30 days late is this is after it's lapsed, but within that 30 days of grace period, right? They need their member ID. You might need to remind them of their member ID. That might be an important thing to keep in the roster. Right, instead of creating a new ID. If they lapse out, then they have to reapply, and I hate that. I really hate that. I don't know why the system works that way, but I'm going to stop there.
Yep, we just restarted the recording. Steve Dyer has a question or a comment that came up in chat. The society is going to 30 days and you're out. Has hurt us with folks who want to stay on, but were embarrassed after losing their incomes. And now, even if they want to help, even if we want to help them out, it creates a lot of additional hoops without helping.
I agree. It would be nice if there was a slightly different stance on it. I know a board member that I can talk to about that. So I'll take that on advisement and I'll take that up. I'll be seeing him and talking to him tomorrow night. Okay. So in the first half, we talked about what does a chapter secretary actually do, right? And I think we've painted the picture pretty well. You're a full-on voting member of the chapter, and you are the one that keeps it running. You're the one that is the neck that turns the head, that makes sure that everyone stays in line, right? Or they'll get karate chops. But you do an awful lot as a chapter secretary, and working with other people to delegate certain activities can be very helpful. Sometimes, though, having someone's help isn't all that helpful. I get this, right? So it's okay. So what a chapter secretary actually does is, actually pretty amazing. And it's amazing that you can keep it together and that you can take care of everything and do it on time. We're going to talk about the filings and the forms and some of the information and where you can go to find it. But just, be that as it may, that as you develop into your secretarial role, and those who have been in the role for a long time, right? I hope your board appreciates you and can appreciate your little blinking lasers and impressive wingspan. You basically are a superhero because you do a lot of the brunt work for the chapter. So we're going to talk about some things here. About forms, and this is where we get into some technical stuff. I think this next segment goes until 9:15, so we've got just 1 hour to barrel through this. Like I've said, and I'm going to stop sharing here for a minute. Like I've said, what you need is right here. So I've already showed that. I think you can see my screen okay. This document center and the chapter business resources. There's a lot of interesting stuff out here. I was actually amazed when I first found some of this information out, right? So there's a chapter leader. Here's a quick guide. That's a nice little resource to go through. Here again, if you have any questions about information, customer service at barbershop.org, right? Here's a resource to Healthy Chapter Initiative. It's all here. What you need to know is all here. There's a lot of information that will bore you and put you to sleep. I know it does me. Here's even, all right, BHS Chapter Administration Leadership Team Overview handout, right? As a chapter president, secretary, treasurer, how you collaborate, use it as a reference point of responsibility. Here, let's take a quick peek at that, right? Look at the introduction. Here's the secretary's role. It's pretty small. Let me make it bigger. I admit, I can't even read it myself. I was going for my glasses and I thought, right? So, I mean, they've put this together. This is not old, but I mean, it's not this year, but it's not old. And you can, this section over here off to the right, by the way, that's provided. So while you're sitting in a meeting, you can, draw a picture of yourself if you're bored. No, it's for taking notes. But chapter secretary role, communicate, all that kind of stuff. It kind of covers it. Here's your treasurer's role, and that's it. So here's secretary, here's treasurer, right? My notes there. Okay, so there you go. So I guess this is pictures, and then this is notes. All right, I guess, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, you explore the resources that are here. People, other chapters, in the society have gone and curated some of these things. Here's a president's workbook. Alan, I'm not sure if you used any of this resource material or contributed to it, right? This is kind of like a treasure trove of things. Some are more helpful than others. I'll admit that. Secretary manual is here. this presentation is here. Here's a sample agenda. Here, let's just take a quick peek at that, right? There you go. Here's a call to order, sing something. Review minutes, right? Secretary's report. So it's just a sample. If you don't have one, use this one. For chapter board of directors, here, sample meeting minutes. Here's what minutes look like. There you go. We'll take a look at that. Any city, Z00 chapter, right? Secretary report. A motion was made. White reported that we currently have 35 members. Land way back has failed to renew. Okay, right. So here's just the notes. 2 pages. That's all it is for this particular meeting. The important stuff matters. Money. When you vote on money, that's very important, and you have to have that in the minutes. The amounts here. This is probably critical. I would say that's critical. Like if you do nothing else, you have to convene the meeting, know the time that you convene the meeting. You have to understand if there's a quorum there, because if you're voting, you have to have a quorum. You sort of had the definition of that, what a quorum is. Your bylaws help cover that when it's a chapter related thing. And then the amounts of money that are involved and what the motion exactly is, right? So when you're dealing with money, very important. Other things are important too, maybe not as important as the money, right? So let's see, chapter treasurer, you could check up on the treasurer and see if he's doing what he's supposed to. And when you're done studying all of your material, you can check up on the treasurer material if you need to, right? So QuickBook templates, all that sort of stuff. I'm showing you this in case you're dealing with a chapter where you've been secretary or you are secretary, and maybe you've got a brand new, let's say, God forbid, I mean, seriously, we're all getting older, right? Let's say you have a chapter treasurer who's been the treasurer for a while, who unfortunately passes away. That happens. And now you've got a new treasurer, and there's not been a transition or a handoff, right? Well, you're the chapter secretary. You know where stuff is. You know about the treasure trove of the barbershop document center. So why I'm showing you this is so you know it's here, so you can share it with the incoming treasurer to say, by the way, take a look at this. This will help you out. This is, the lay of the land, right? Because the treasurer has some very important things to do as well, right? Okay. Standard bylaws. Our bylaws come from the society. Here they are. Show clearances. And this will take you to the show clearances page. Here's the insurance statement. There's other tools. Let's see, other tools. What's other tools? Oh, here you go. All right. So let's say, geez, I don't know. I'm a new president. I have no idea. And Alan, I'm very sorry that I didn't attend last week. I really wanted to. I don't, again, know if you covered any of this kind of stuff, but I'm going to sort of just gloss over this. Let's say you're a new president. You're trying to figure out what a vision and a mission is and what you're supposed to do. And geez, I can't do everything and all that kind of stuff. Well, here's a kind of a sort of a suggestion, right? Serving suggestion. Maybe you have a chapter secretary, do these things. Maybe you have a chapter president take on all of these tasks, or maybe you figure out a way to delegate that to someone, right? Who's maybe a show chairman or something, So there are some resources here, right? This is just, again, an example, some things to think about, right? Here's 8 points of fun. I've been through that a little bit. Chapter musical leadership team guide, program guide, show production, right? Director audition evaluation form. Let's say you find yourself needing a director. Actually, Bucks County is going to need a director. Here, how important is this to you, right? And there's actually a process, by the way, that is defined about selecting a new director. Sample job descriptions. This can be handy. Right? What does a chapter secretary actually do? This is distilled, by the way. I'm going to show this, right? So here you got all the different president, secretary, treasurer, immediate past president, right? Nominating committee member, and kind of an example of, the sort of suggestion of, you want to have someone who's president, has been a member of a chapter, cannot serve in another office or position in the chapter at the time, be an active member, right? So there's sort of a stipulation. You can sort of, if there's any contention about what a particular job role is, you can look at a job description. Oftentimes that can be a big help, right? Have some place to look at. And you can probably, I think you could probably augment or adjust this as need be. There's others. These are not required roles, right? These are not required board positions. But like if you have someone who's like a librarian, here's maybe a suggestion of what they might do, or a contest coordinator, or a property manager, right? So these kinds of helps exist, for your benefit. Use them. It's up to you to use them, right? Okay, let's see. So now we get to some other important documents here. The IRS letter confirming the nonprofit tax exemption. I'm going and showing you where this stuff is right now. The presentation does go into a lot of specifics about this, so just bear with me. If you've got questions about what all these are and when I have to file them and all that kind of thing, we're going to get to that. Okay, I have a slide for that. All right. So here's your, if you do work, if someone does work for the chapter, here's a W-9 that you might have to fill in, right? Taxpayer identification number, and then here's your 990s. So there's the one for 2015, 2016. There's probably updated ones. Steve can probably help us out with that. Maybe he'll talk about that next week. I'm not sure. Let me go back to the presentation here. So I'm a little off road, but I think that was important. That's what I wanted to show is where the stuff is. There are probably other areas where you can find information. By the way, it is acceptable for you, if you have a question, to ask your district resource, for their input about what to do, and other chapters as well, or maybe other larger chapters or other successful chapters. Now, when you're going to do that, you might want to know what the society says, but you can also maybe get a hand from a neighboring chapter, and again, or your district. So it's okay. We're not, our chapter is not like the only chapter in the world that does this, right? So it's okay to reach out and to get help from your neighboring chapter. Really, they're not when you do a SWOT, everyone know what a SWOT analysis is? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Again, this is something you can do from either a chapter advocate standpoint, maybe a chapter wants to do a SWOT analysis, but when you get down to it, right, and you're trying to figure out who we are and what we're doing and to strategic plan for our future, right? When you list threats, you can't list other chapters as threats. They're not a threat. They're our brothers in harmony. We do projects with them, right? So anyway, just a little funny on that. Okay, let's go ahead back into presentation mode, right? So there are required filings. I will tell you, and you probably already know, the society will send out and make available a naughty list of chapters that are not in compliance. I will also tell you that this list is faulty. There was a system, and now there's a different system. And it's my understanding, and I don't know all the details, the actual sundry details, but it's my understanding when they transitioned from the old system to the new system a few years ago, that they lost track of who actually had filed properly, that piece didn't translate properly. And so it was wrong. I know our district asked our chapter advocates and our VP of each section, each division, to go ask and just find out and make sure, check the information is accurate. I did not like doing that. That was a very difficult time to go through. Anyway.
Can I just interject that we ran into that when the two reports that came out this year from Barbershop Harmony Society, that we sent this out. I take the file and sort it by chapter, by division, and then send it out to that resorted file to each division manager. And boy, a lot of them came back and said, this chapter is in full compliance. And I looked online and they were.
Mm-hmm.
But yet it had red squares all the way across.
I know.
And so now, as I like to say, there's no education in the second, getting kicked by the mule the second time,
right,
that we're now going to check before we start calling. So yeah, it's really done poorly. And I've gotten no response from Nathan Ogg regarding this change or fact that it's not accurate.
I want to say something here, and I don't mean it to be like a negative diss, but I'm an IT guy and I work with data in systems all the time. And I've offered also to help the society with this data problem, because realistically, it's just a data problem. It's just that we have to get the right data, get it in the system, get it cleansed, and then wrap a process around maintaining it, right? So it's really not that difficult. I do this kind of thing for a profession for the last 30 years. I don't know why they don't want my help to fix it either. But guess what? I'm not the only guy that's a data guy that understands databases, understands data, and can help solve this problem. But it's a fight for a different day, and it's okay. Because actually I'm busy with my family and other stuff like this. So I'm busy, but I would gladly help that, because it's very embarrassing to have a list. It's a naughty list that just is complete fiction, right? So I've said my two cents. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be angry. I know that people are doing their best, and that's okay. I respect them for that. I just wish I could help. Not that I have the solution, the only solution, but I can help. Chapter Incorporation, here you are. This says the location is MAD website, but that's Mid-Atlantic District. I'm not sure if you have for your area. I could show you our Mid-Atlantic District website, but it's just not relevant. Every state, like let's just put it in context here. So in Pennsylvania, there is a way to do this. Chapter Incorporation has to be filed in a specific way. State of New Jersey, different process. State of Virginia, different process. So you need to know, as your chapter secretary, where your chapter is incorporated, and then you need to file appropriately. If that's annually, if that's every 3 years, if that's, once in a renewal, and if there's periodic changes that you have to register, like in the state of New Jersey, when board members change, you have to file a paperwork indicating such. You have to know, and what we did, maybe you have it, is we have someone that went and found this out for all the states that are in Mid-Atlantic District, and we have a well, let me show it. Sorry, why not, right? Why can't we show it? Here, let's do it. It won't take but a minute. Here we go. Searching again, Mid-Atlantic District Barbershop. And let's see, find people, docs and information. I think I might need to log in. I'm sorry that this looks a little bit pedestrian, if I could call it that. This website has a database in the back end, and it's got a lot of information on it. Stuff you have to log in for. But if I look at docs and information, and I believe it's right here under state filings, nonprofit registration and compliance. Here you are. So let me make that a little bit bigger for you, right? So here are the regulations and who to contact in one place, right? District, here's Delaware, here's Maryland, here's New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania. You get the idea, right? Just a little help aid for everyone that's in our district. Let me okay, let's go ahead and do it like this and like this. Chapter Incorporation. So you're up to that. That's you. The 990 needs to be filed.
Can I ask a question, Rob?
Sure.
Going back to the resource that you have at your disposal for the different requirements in each of the different district states and District of Columbia.
Mm-hmm.
Who put that together?
That was, and I think the guy's name is actually listed here. Let's see, is it here? I think this was Chris Beekler.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah, Chris Beekler did this for us.
Because I'd like to figure out what he did. I would imagine he had to go into each state and get in touch with whoever it was that could tell him what nonprofit registration and what do they call it? I can't even think. Incorporation, I guess.
501c and incorporation, and all that.
Okay.
Yeah, so Chris Beekler can help you with that. Probably. I think this is a project for someone who's retired.
Well, yeah, you're talking to him. So
just saying. No, it's okay. It's all good. So, yeah. So that we find that helpful. You know, we've been talking about doing that for years, and so he finally did. That's great. 990s. Let's see. So for U.S. chapters, ask your chapter treasurer for a copy of your IRS 990. So Steve, I'm going to tap you on the shoulder. Or let me ask you a question. How much are you going to go into the 990 form next week, right?
Definitely, yes.
Of course. Okay. So so let me just talk about though the handoff between secretary and treasurer. So do you have, does the treasurer file the 990 or does the secretary?
Any officer can. The treasurer is probably in the best position to have the information at hand.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I always have. I've done a lot of the secretarial duties simply because they often involve writing a check. So as treasurer, I say, I'll do that for you. I'll send in the Ascap form, whatever it is. Because it's usually something pretty simple.
All right.
I don't encourage all treasurers to take on all jobs.
Yeah, right.
Guys, this is Alan. I believe, at least I know in Connecticut, but I believe everywhere, the law usually requires that the board should review the 990 before it's submitted.
One thing about literally the Form 990, it's only for quite large chapters. 90% of us file the electronic postcard, the 990N.
Okay.
And those who can't can probably file the EZ form, which follows the same rules as the 990. It's just shorter.
We're going to get into that next week.
Yep.
Right. Yep. So let's, for time, I'm sorry, guys, just for time. The financial review, though, and talking about review, that's also very important. Coordinating a financial review. So the financial review wants to be impartial or unbiased. So it can't. You want it to be someone else, like not the treasurer, and I don't know, maybe not the secretary either. So someone in the chapter. It's also a good thing. Just have them review and make sure the records are up to date and seem consistent.
The rules say that the financial review has to be done by someone who is not a member of the board at any time.
Not a member of the board
during the period of the review.
Yep, that makes perfect sense, right? For accountability, because it's an integrity and accountability thing, right? This is what we said we had as income. This is what we said we had as expense. This is what our net is. These are the disbursements to our grants. So someone who's doing a financial review, it can't be just anyone though. I mean, they do need to be aware of like what the programs are. Like for instance, if you have an annual scholarship that you award in the amount of $150 or $200, well, that would be something you want to look at and make sure it was done, right? Make sure that's recorded. If it's missing, wait, what happened here? Did we do it? Oh, yeah, we did it. Did we write it down? Well, no. Well, okay. Let's write it down.
What I found is that most financial reviews are done by the secretary, by the treasurer, or by the secretary, and not by a third party.
East Federbolden.
I'm sorry?
It's forbidden.
Yeah. Okay.
That treasurer should never do his own review. Absolutely not.
So this slide goes more into detail. We sort of covered the chapter incorporation, right? State or province where they reside. I'm going to let you look at this slide. There's a lot of words on it. Registered or resident agent, that kind of thing. Here's your 990 info. Here's some timings. Let's see. What does it say here? Timings. No later than May 15th of every year, and Canadian chapters June 30th every year, right? I don't think we have Canadian chapters in NED, do we? No, right?
Yes, we do.
All of the Atlantic Canada provinces are part of NED.
Ah, okay.
And Quebec.
Got it. So then this does apply to you partially. Mid-Atlantic District, we don't have anyone that is Canadian chapter, right? So we're landlocked. All right, cool. So just a little note on that. Again, more info. Here's the financial review, right? No later than the 30th of every year, June 30th of every year. Here again, it talks about financial review user's guide, document center, business and finance. fiduciary, more specifically, to ensure the money is entrusted to it is being handled properly. So here you go. So to ensure that the money is entrusted to it is being handled properly. So that would kind of tell you why it's important that the treasurer not do it. Legal fees. Let's see. It's crucial that chapter legal documents are kept safe. We talked about keeping them safe, making backups, making copies, maybe photocopies. Hang on a second. I see that there's some things down on the bottom there that I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Yeah, there's some more stuff down there. Let me go get that and bring it up. Sorry. Oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff there. Here, let's see if I can put that in another box. Give me a second. I'm so sorry to put you all through this. Here, let's see. Can I paste it there? There you go. I'll put it over there. Let's see. Sorry, guys. Like I said, this is has some fresh edits to it here. I think that'll show. There we go. All right. Legal fees, the legally required, the chapter license and charter, incorporation records. Make sure they're kept safe. The standard chapter bylaws, rules and regs, if you have them. Membership applications are listed here. Statements of policy, right? Insurance records, 990, year-end treasury reports. Employee contracts, if you have a contract with your director. If you don't have one, I recommend you have one. Licenses, and music, mechanical, and synchronization licenses. Yeah, it's interesting, right, to say that. Oh, yeah, sure. But that's important to have too. When you've worked out permission to have, to use music, sell it or use it for marketing, make sure you have that license and it's easy to find. How long do you keep records? Great question, right? Keep it forever. Everything you have to keep forever, right? Well, if we had to keep everything forever, guess what? We'd run out of space real fast. However, I know people that do keep things forever. You really can't do that. Year to year, insurance certificates, if it's current, right? So you want to keep the current year, right? Copy the society bylaws and district bylaws, orders placed with Harmony Marketplace, other invoices. You want to keep those receipts until you don't need them anymore, meaning that you don't need to refer to them anymore. Once you've made a filing, it's funny, right? So somewhere I have a filing cabinet back here behind me, and I'm sure that I've got an ATM withdrawal slip, I haven't looked at in years probably, and I've got ATM slips there probably from like 25 years ago, or check stubs from like 30 years ago. Do I need those? Probably not, right? Get rid of them, right? Useful life. 3 years, let's see, 7 years, okay, 3 years. Copy of membership applications, approved SOCAN show, approved BMI, CSAC or SOCAN shows, licenses, Ascap applications, standing ovation program reviews. I'm not sure if anyone has that or does that. I know that in Mid-Atlantic District, I'm actually a certified standing ovation program judge, but I've never done one. 7 years, copies of the 990s, copies of the financial reviews, copies of youth protection forms, contracts for venues or rehearsal spaces, receipts or invoices for chapter property purchases, like risers, like electronic equipment, like PA systems or microphones. And then forever, you have to keep these things too. So notice that we have over here, right, articles of incorporation, statements of continuous existence. These are all, required by your state, actually. Minutes of annual meetings, minutes of board meetings, chapter bylaws and policies, a record of community service, and free performances. That last bullet is vitally important. It's funny, I had a conversation with my chapter when I was president, and they didn't get it. I wanted to establish a board level, board approved document, which was a table of fees, performance fees. Now, the one guy that was coordinating our performances did not like this because he wanted to negotiate whatever fee he wanted. He didn't want to publish it because he didn't want people to get the wrong idea, because, sometimes we want to give it away for free. Sometimes we want to give a friend discount or something like that. And it had nothing to do with that. I did not want to impinge on his fun or his ability to negotiate that, because realistically, he needs to have freedom to make that call and to have that be delegated, right? I don't want to give it away for $5, but, and I don't want to charge over, $500, but I wanted to have a fee schedule ratified by the board. And here's why. when you have a record of community services and free performances, you need to report the value of performances that were performed, regardless if you actually earned income from that or charged and received income for that. So there's what you received as income, and then there's what you gave away. How do you count what you gave away? Well, it was probably worth $100. I don't know. Well, if you have an established fee schedule, you've got the rules documented, and you've established the way that you measured that so that it's appropriate. Well, oh yeah, we did, 12 performances that we got paid for, but we did 30 that we didn't get paid for. Well, how much were those worth? And it's important that you keep that, and notice that you keep that forever, right? So that becomes part of it here. Are there any questions on this?
Yes, who do you report those free performances to?
So those actually factor into your status of a 501c3, a non-for-profit organization, because you have to prove that you are not making a profit, that you are not profiting from this. So there has to be a certain amount, a percentage, and I don't know if it's the same for every state. I think it's probably different for every state, which is why you're incorporated in your state. So that's who too. So if there's an audit, they'll look at that. When you file you're applying for your tax exempt code, right? So you can make purchases with the tax exempt code. When you're filing for your 501c3, you have to report what percentage were freebies.
So that's if the IRS does an audit of your report.
Not only that, no, it's your state, your 501c3, you're filing with your state. Your nonprofit incorporation status.
Yeah, okay, I filled out some stuff, which I think we're one of the few chapters that does it. And I never saw anything about reporting free performances.
Maybe
it's a public charities requirement, and they want to make sure that you're fitting below some percentage.
What state is that?
Massachusetts.
In Massachusetts. Maybe that's a state thing. All right, let me move on.
Okay, Steve Stoyevsky has a comment in chat. He says,
oh, good.
That record of community services provided can be important in applying for exemption from your state's tax.
There you go.
The more charitable you appear, the easier it is to get a sales tax exemption. That's to say sales taxes. Yes, every state is different. 501c3 is a federal concept.
Got it, right. Okay, thank you for that clarification. This talks about, we talked about already, the backup, making a backup, making sure you have a safe location. Never go completely electronic because you can't. You have to have some things in paper. We've already sort of talked about that. Flood, fire, burglary. Yeah. I don't think burglary is a natural disaster. It's just a disaster. All right. Are you ready for a visit from your federal government? Make sure that you have what you need to have, and also make sure you can find it. Right? You don't want to have to go through and find it like, you want to be sure that you're organized. One of the attributes of being a chapter secretary is having good organizational skills, right? So, just keep your stuff and know where you have it. All right. Chapter elections. Let's talk about that. We just went through that. I had to remind my chapter about this as well. Chapter elections must be held by October 15th, according to the society. And I think that's, you should try and meet that, right? I know that there's a requirement for, so that happens at the annual meeting, right? And annual membership meeting. So you convene that on a date probably close to October 15th, or as was, whatever it was, whatever day that week was. We even had it over Zoom. We convened a meeting. We took the vote, slate of officers. This year, we pretty much did a pass. Everyone who was in just moved forward. We had some members at large that we have a rotating. We have two and two, right? So we have two classes. We have an even and an odd class. So they serve for 2 years as members at large, and 2 of them rotate off, 2 of them come on. I think we understand that concept. So this year I had to impress upon our president. I don't serve on the chapter board at all at the moment. I just can't. But I had to help our chapter president understand that this was not really just a suggestion and not just kind of what Rob thought we should do. It's kind of like important that we need to do it this way. So I sent him this slide. It's like, okay. So anyway, it's not, I'm making a little bit light of this kind of stuff. And same thing when we talked about like your, what you keep and how long you keep it, or, your 990, your legal files and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, we're making some jokes in here, but, I can't underline the importance of this, because you're the one as the chapter secretary who's legally required to make sure that the records are kept and kept properly, and that you know where they're kept, and that you safeguard them from being stolen or otherwise destroyed, right? That's part of the job. Here's the chapter roster and personnel changes, keeping it published quarterly. Officer changes reported to the society and to the district. It doesn't hurt to notify our district secretary of an update. State corporation filings may be required. I kind of mentioned that. We have I guess we use Groupizer, but many of your hosting Harmonizer, a lot of them have rosters online that people can go and see. What we're talking about here, though, is there might be other information that you have that you keep track of with your members that you might need to publish. To, like if you have a sunshine committee or a kind of a membership support committee, they maybe you want to send birthday cards, or you want to have anniversary cards or something like that. Maybe that's something you celebrate in your chapter, right? So that's kind of published quarterly in either in a newsletter or in an email, or these are the birthdays and anniversaries that are coming up this month. Don't forget to say congrats, or whatever. That's not a formal thing. It's consider, right? When you have the unfortunate situation, as sometimes happens, where someone passes away, right? The society has to be told, because they just don't know. It's it's send an email, send a note, right? Or and let them know, right? So they send a letter and all that sort of stuff. I guess I haven't received one yet, at least not that I'm aware of. I guess I should worry if I get one. But anyone found caught dead on the line will be reported to their superior officer, right? So
Rob, I have
Yeah.
a question. I think I wrote it to you in the preparatory questionnaire.
Yeah.
Is it possible for a chapter secretary or officer to change or to indicate that a member is passed on Member Center, or is it this the required and only method of reporting a death?
Well, I know that there are some members of some organizations that I wish would die, and so as a fun game, I would report them dead. No, I'm not. I wouldn't really do that. There's a bit of authenticity that needs to be proven. So I'm not sure that you can just go and just twiddle like a little check, member deceased. I think that there's a process involved with validating or verifying it, right? Maybe
Rob, specifically, there's no way for a secretary to remove somebody from the chapter.
That's right.
And this is kind of the same thing. You really have to go through their customer service. It's just the only way that I know of.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think about it, be in their shoes, you gotta, someone's reporting this. I mean, you want to trust people, but you don't know. You got to make sure.
Harry Willis has a question. Harry, unmute yourself and ask away.
Yes, Rob, I noticed that the rules say that elections for officers must be by secret ballot. How is that done electronically?
Yeah, no, it doesn't have to be. unless the slate of officers is uncontested. It has to do with contestedness, right? So this
Right. Well,
last
if,
part is important.
okay.
Okay. So
Well, if
for
it's
our,
if it happens to be contested, how would you do it?
well, yeah, we would have to talk through that process, right? So you could do that by mail-in ballot. That's very popular these days, right?
You could
So
do a Survey Monkey.
there you go.
You'd get anonymity in that.
Yeah.
And that's easy to set up.
Well, let's be true though to this, right? So you would have to probably commission someone or deputize someone that would be the one that would know, right? So it would be a secret ballot, but I mean, like if you emailed it in, or if you mailed it in or emailed it in, you know, no one but that person would know. So you would have to deputize someone, and then they could keep it secret. Or a Survey Monkey, you know, like I said, or mail, snail mail. You could maybe get a physical mark. One of my radio chapters is that way, so you could work that out if it's contested.
I guess that comes under the heading of we'll deal with that when and if it occurs.
Yeah, well, you know, it's kind of like when you've got a motion on the floor, right? You know, and you know, maybe it involves money. You know, should we send our director to Harmony University? You know, should we, you know, full ride, you know, scholarship, right? You know, all in favor, you know, aye. Any opposed? Nay. And then when you hear voices like to come back with nay, like you've got like more than one voice, more than one dissenting voice, well, then it's like, oh, okay, let's get the paper and pens. You know, that it's kind of like that, right? Let's take account. Let's figure that out. Right. Okay. Society youth policy.
Just a second, Rob. Jesse says there seems to me to be a significant number of antiquated rules and regulations in this discussion. As that said, I guess that if a chapter has significant warring factions, some of these may be necessary.
It's true. Like we said, so the short form of Robert's rules is kind of recommended, you know, for small chapters, right? Or, you know, for small boards. I think that the society has gone a long way to work with smaller chapters that don't need all of the board positions and don't need the structured, you know, parliamentary process. There's a recognition that, you know what, we're all pretty good, but there is also a recognition that there sometimes is a need for that formal process, which is why we leave it up to the chapters to decide, you know, how you have to behave. So it's not that they're, I mean, Robert's Rules of Orders is antiquated, right? So of course it is, right? So, I mean, it's true, but, you know, people use it because it works, you know? All right, let me move on to a couple of things. We're coming down to the ending of time here. So the youth, can't stress this enough, right? Youth are to be protected, and guardianship, you know, has to be established. Each activity. So this is interesting. Not many chapters do this, and not many chapters know you should do this, but you should complete a youth protection policy participation form for each activity, not just a blanket participation one. It's for each activity. And that's an activity where the child is going to be leaving the guardianship of their parent and being supervised by someone under the chapter's leadership's care, right? I know, right? So my kids go on trips, and I have to fill out a form for every trip they go on, right? Same thing, and very legal. The very, very important to keep this on file. This is be your own lawyer, right? You know, so you want to keep this on hand, that you had it, that, you know, I mean, God forbid something happened, but even if nothing happened, you have the record and you've kept it. Supervised by an adult member at all chapter, district, or society sponsored events at all times. I mean, aside from going into the bathroom with them, I guess, right? So, I mean, let's be careful there, right? But, you know, you can't just leave the kid on their own, right? You become their parent is really essentially it. If their parent's there, all the better, because they're really in the behest of their parent, right? But you still have to have the completed and signed youth policy participation form in the event that the parents go out to dinner and leave their child with you, right? So got to have that covered. Here are the questions on that. I don't want to bypass that. Okay.
Yeah, would that include rehearsal, each rehearsal as an event?
It's a great question. I don't think so. You still have to.
No, that's covered by the first form.
Correct.
This is outside performances, and
right.
There might be an afterglow where alcohol is served. You
Right.
know, you have to be careful about that, but you
Right.
know, life goes on.
Yep. Thank you. Chapter insurance policy, general liability for the chapters. Many of you know about this. You cannot opt out of it, and because of that, right? So annual fees subject to change for the liability insurance, usually towards the beginning of the year. It's invoiced toward the beginning of the year. I think that what may have happened, right, with this, you ask about maybe a revised, we'll take this up with, like I said, with the society board member. I'm going to talk to you tomorrow night. We may not have just hit it. Maybe they haven't communicated it out, but maybe that's coming. Maybe they've considered that and they've struck a different deal. I haven't heard that, but it's possible, right? So we'll find out about that. It's not that much though. I mean, it's a little bit, but it's not that much, right? A few $100s, I think, right?
Well, it's based on your membership.
Your membership, right? So the smaller chapters, right? But I mean, ours is, I don't know, ours is like $400 or $300 or $400 or something like that, I think. Again, I haven't been involved at the board level for a long time. Certificates are available on the website. That was that. I'm not going to go to it again because we're, again, short for time, but we showed that was on that list of documents. There's a little insurance area. That's where it is. Complete the questionnaire, allow 30 days for processing, potential additional premiums for if you have a youth workshop or a festival, if you have non-members performing groups, or if you have food and alcohol served at your event, multiple additional insured parties, right? So again, customer service at barbershop.org is a great site for that. You should reach out to them if there's any question at all, because again, be your own lawyer. You want to be sure that you've got the insurance certificate and the insurance coverage that you need for your event. If you don't, and God forbid something happen, well, then you're liable. And as a chapter board, you are legally liable unless you're covered by this insurance policy. There's actually the indemnification of chapter officers, right? The bylaws will cover that. You need to be careful what you're exposed to, right? Bonding insurance. So this is kind of what I was relating to, right? You're covered by the employee dishonesty policy. You're covered. The limit's $50,000 for losses. Anything beyond that, I think, is personal. Defined under the policy with a $1,000 deductible. So, I mean, if there's misdeeds happening, you're on the board. It's to your benefit to choose not to participate, but really more better for you to right the situation and to deal with the dishonesty. If you're, caught criminally, liable for the issues that happened, mishandling of funds, you could be liable for monetary remuneration. Steve, I hope you're going to cover that more next week.
Yes, there's a few more details we'll cover next week.
Property insurance, you've got risers, you've got, electronic systems, you've got costumes, you've got sets, anything you've got. Does not cover automobiles or moving vehicles. That's separate. Doesn't cover or does not extend to hired or non-owned, like a rented U-Haul or something. So if it's a chapter owned van for equipment, great. If it's a rented, U-Haul, doesn't cover that, right? Read the fine print. Reach out to customer service at barbershop.org if you have a question. Let's say you have to make a claim. Call them. That's really all this slide has to say, right? Here's legal guidance, though. I'll give you this little tip. Don't make any statements, written or otherwise, to anyone except the customer service department, because anything you say can and will be held against you in a court of law. I mean, I hate having to think like that, that, geez, I should be careful, right? But you want to consider that, right? So just clam up, and share information as is appropriate for the situation, but don't over explain. Let the society handle it. Show licensing and clearances, and I'm going to cover these next two topics in rapid order because I want to get to the end and leave some time for other questions. Here they are. We've all heard about them, probably all heard about them. It's up to you to file the paperwork as chapter secretary. BMI, SESAC clearances are done prior to the show. Download the form and submit it through the district secretary. There's usually a district secretary or an assistant secretary, someone who's in charge of show clearances. The show clearances, it's important to file, and again, it's important to do before the show. Ascap is done after the show based on the annual gross ticket revenue. I know our chapter doesn't sell that many tickets, so we're the fixed fee portion of that. I think most of our chapters are probably in that bucket as well. Again, download the form, submit it through headquarters, and the payment is paid to headquarters. SOCAN, the date clearance needs to be, by the district, right? Prior to the show. Download the forms from BHS and submit directly to the SOCAN after the show with the applicable payment. I wish that things were free. I wish that what we were doing was completely free, but that's not the case. Complete the form, send 3 copies. District secretary returns a signed copy of the form with their approval back to the chapter. So you have that and you keep that. That's when we talked about the files. You have to keep show clearances, approved show clearances on file. And then the other 2 copies, I guess, are used at the society and at the district level. And then you can finalize the venue with the talent and the contracts. You don't want to finalize your venue or your talent before you have approval, because if for some reason it's not approved, then it makes a mess that you have to clean up. Get clearances early if you know it. All right. Ascap licensing fees. Here's a slide on that. It's filed at the end of the year. It's pretty easy, even if there were no shows, though. Let's point that out. That's the important part here. Also, free will or benefit concerts must be licensed by Ascap. It doesn't matter if someone's paying for it or not. It still has to be licensed. And so you have to count it. And that's why it's important. So you need to keep track of the songs that were sung and the songs that were sung. Failure to do so could result in copyright infringements. There's a whole slide on copyright I'm going to get to in a minute. And keep a copy of all of these forms in the chapter legal file. And here's SOCAN. Ordinarily, we skip over this in Mid-Atlantic District. I'm not going to skip over it here, but I'll be honest with you. Some of this information is a little bit new to me. This is similar to other filings, though. File the paperwork, do it beforehand. Every song must be listed, and then you have to compute the fees, and you have to pay the fees, and you have to keep a completed form in the chapter legal file. So on the one hand, there are some very specific things that you got to keep in mind that you have to do, and you have to do in this order. And there's a legal process to do it. There's a responsibility to do it. But I mean, I think you can see the process is very similar, regardless of where you are and what kind of performance you're doing. It's very similar. Get approval for it, file what you did, keep a record of it, right? Pay for what you did. Show venue and talent. This is a recommendation, but you're going to keep track of it. Here again, bottom line is file contracts in the chapter legal file. This is advice, right? Get everything in writing. Never sign any contracts until your date is approved. Use the contract to finalize and clarify details. In the U.S., remind the chapter treasurer that a 1099 might be required for fees in excess of $600. I'm going to ask for just a fact check on that from Steve. Steve, is that still true? That's still true, right?
Technically 600 or more, but yeah, it's still true.
Yep. There you go. So in excess of 600, I think. So
It's not in excess, it's 600 or more.
$600 or more. Okay. Thank you for that. So what you're saying is that this includes 600 and 601 and 602 and 603. I follow you. Okay. Are there any questions about any of that? Again, we have about 5 minutes left in this program time. I'm available afterward as well. I'm just offering that, but I don't want to breach any times, but I do want to get to this next thing. All right. Let's talk about copyrights. Do they matter? Sure. It's against the law to go and make recordings of things and all that sort of thing. I'm going to show you something here. There is a document. I'm going to search for this. I'm going to say copyright, and that's all I need. Copyright 101, copyright resources, copyright fundamentals, general copyright forms and basics, right? So there's all of this interesting information here. There is a form here, show clearances, general copyright forms. Let's learn more about that. Copyright basics for barbershoppers, right? Didn't take me long to get it. So this, there's a person, there's a whole person, Janice Bain, who's in charge at the Society for helping us understand what copyright laws are required. So this covers, you know, derivative works and performances and printed material and recorded material, learning tracks, when you put them up on downloading learning tracks, learning media distributed on chapter websites. I'm pointing this out because there are a lot of chapters that don't even know that this exists. And again, my inexperienced president, current president of our chapter, I had to basically club over the head so he sort of understood this. DVD and video recordings and the synchronization license. A big question is, well, do I need one? Yes, you do. Right? The answer is yes, you absolutely do. Here's some interesting information for you: distribution rights and website for clearances and permissions and getting performance rights. You can reach out and talk to people about this. I highly recommend you pull this document down and read it with a fine-tooth comb. You know, here are links, and here's the Barbershop Harmony Society phone number. They have a hotline with operators standing by. When in doubt, ask for permission. Library at barbershop.com, customer service at barbershop.com. This article is put together, like I said, by Janice Bain. I'm going to close this for a minute. I'm going to go to the, let's see, where do we find it? It is Society Resources. No, I think it's not. I think it's at the Membership Harmony Society. Let's go back to, let's go search for it here. So Barbershop. I'm sure you've all seen this before. Barbershop Harmony Society. Oh, let's see. Got to include Harmony there. Harmony. All right, and let's get right to the main page. And when we talk about us, and we talk about our team, here's BHS leadership, and here's BHS staff. Right, let's go to staff for a minute. Again, keeping in the theme of you're the one in the know. You need to know. Send Marty an email. He loves that, by the way. Copyright and music publication. Look, there's a bunch of folks you can talk to here. Library at Barbershop, that's Janice Bain. She's the actual copyright and license manager. Let me show you this too. This is going to be very important. I'm going to go to YouTube. I don't know if anyone has seen this. You go to YouTube and you search for Janice Bain and copyright. So she hosted, here's the Harmony University Copyright 101. So this is a great video to watch. It's 20 minutes long. Here's an hour-long session. I'm going to just sort of open this a second. I'm not going to play it, but look at this panel. So these people, Kent, Shari, Jeremy, Janice, Alec, and Tim. These are leaders of the music world, of copyright clearance houses. You have to look at who these people are. Yeah, Shari is permission manager of Hal Leonard. Kent Draughton at Capital CMG, VP of Music Publishing, GIA Publications, right? And then there's the other people right here. I'm not going to belabor the point. These people are the ones that actually give permission. Janice Bain, our Janice Bain at Barbershop Harmony Society, she's the one that actually put this together and moderated this. She knows what she's talking about. So, copyright basics. Let's get back to that for a minute. Let's go back over here and present. So, if you have a question, do I need it? Yeah, assume you do, and ask for permission. If you're not sure and you want clarification, please look at that document, pull that down, read it, and then reach out if you need more questions. Know this, that as the board members, again, legal liability, copyright infringement, wow, $50,000 per copy. Listen, as Chris Beekler says it, right? Do you speed? Yeah. Should you? No. If you speed and you get caught, you're going to get a ticky. If you get caught and you have a ticky, you have to fight it. Very hard to fight copyright infringement, by the way, but you can, but very hard to fight it if you have the legal fees to do it. You're going to have to pay the fine if you get caught. So don't get caught. No? How about don't break the law? That's how he puts it. Here's more information. CJ20. Look, I got it right. CJ20, contest registration form. I remembered it, right? You do this. And certification of songs and members. This is why you need good records. I'm not going to copy. I think I'm going to bypass this here. BHS Member Center. We've been in there. We've talked about that. Who do I contact? And that's in the deck here as well. We've talked about that throughout this entire program. And your district secretary can be a resource for you. And thank you. Don't forget Healthy Chapter Initiative as well. Listen, I'm sorry we are at time. I want to respect your time. I'm available. I'm sorry we couldn't spend the whole day. I love clam chowder. You know, New England clam chowder is the best. I wish I could be with you all more. I'm available.
I thought the CJ20 was a thing of the past. We now do Barbara Score. It's all electronic.
Right. I've heard that. I don't know the actual official regulation for that.
Well, I believe that's what it is. Alan
that
Lampson
sounds
would certainly know.
Yeah, I'm on. It is. So, and going forward, Barbara Score will be what all the chapters will use, as we have in the last 2 or 3 years, to register your choruses for contests.
Okay.
Choruses, but what about quartets?
Quartets, but secretaries generally don't register quartets.
Right.
Well, what about VLQs?
They could, but they're classified under choruses.
Right.
Oh.
I'll update the slide deck too. I'll get that note back to Rich.
Okay, Rob, somebody said, I'd like to return to the issue of having paper copies of documents. Given today's technology, that doesn't seem necessary. It is much easier to maintain documents electronically, even if they're scanned, and they can easily be printed if necessary, even with signatures.
Right. Okay, so the problem with that is authenticity and also tamper-proof. So when you scan a document and you store it and you just put it like in a PDF file, that can be edited, and that could be also made to be, made to be inaccurate or misleading. So that's one of the main reasons why that you cannot do that.
And of course, Steve Stojewski has a plug here for next week. All attendees this evening are invited and strongly encouraged to visit. Come back in 2 weeks for the joint session of presidents, secretaries, and treasurers. The instructors have a lesson plan for that session, and looks like it's going to be, we have over 30 people signed up for that already. So anyone who is not please email me and I will enroll you in that chapter officers forum.
Okay.
So thank you. Thank you, Rob, very much for your time. Thank you, everyone, for coming and hanging in there. Thank you, Jim Bruner, for getting here. Jim is a treasurer extraordinaire, and I guess he's wants to take over Jesse's job at the same chapter, but as secretary. But great to have you here. And again, thank you, everyone, for coming. Shortly after we're out of here, I'll be sending out the 5-question survey and optional comments. I would love everyone to fill it out and get it back in. We use these to help us guide our next classes and the next time we run our Leadership Academy, which will probably be online at some point. So again, thank you, everyone, and thank you, Rob, for your time. It was very enjoyable. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Thank you very much, and good night. Have a great rest of the evening. Or as they say, you got to go home. You can't stay here. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
That's funny. That's very.
Thank you very much, fellas.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Yep.